On this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast, can I retire already?
Welcome to the Crushing Debt Podcast with your host, Florida attorney Shawn Yesner, where our goal is to help you get rid of the financial bullies in your life.
So welcome back to this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast. My name is Shawn Yesner, owner and founder of Yesner Law, and I've got your financial coach with us, George Corbello. How you doing, George?
How are you, everybody out there? Doing well, man. I have to say, survived all these holidays, and I'm already sick of Mariah Carey and all that. So I get it. I know what I want for Christmas. We get it already. It's I want the New Year. That's what I want for Christmas.
There you go. We are into December, though, so we're getting ready for all the holidays and New Year's and all that kind of stuff.
I have to say that I think Christmas starts in Halloween and before Halloween, apparently. So no, I'm good already. I think I'll be the bah humbug right now.
Nah, maybe now, but eventually you'll be in the Christmas spirit.
There you go.
So
Fine.
The topic this week, can I retire already? And I guess I got to have my voice crack every time I say that phrase. We are into December. We are looking at 2023 planning. Hopefully you're trying to do you being the listeners, are trying to do some 2023 planning. And hopefully that planning includes contacting George as your financial coach, or even if you want to talk with me about some financial goals. But what are the kinds of things, in other words, start thinking about what are the kinds of things that you want to think about as we get into 2023, and when do you want to retire?
I would say I was hoping I could be retired already, but yes, the standard, right, is 65. That's what the government tells us that we're supposed to be retired.
Yeah, my wife asks me all the time, when do you want to retire? And I say yesterday.
Exactly.
Every single day. I can't wait. I'm going to be sipping drinks with umbrellas in them.
See, and that's the thing. I think you talk to a lot of people today. I think right now it's the corporate gig. You're working in the corporate or for a job itself, somebody else, and it's like, okay, I'll work my life 20, 30, 40 years of working, and then I get to retire and enjoy all the fruits of your labor. And we're starting to realize that that's changing now, the way we think about retirement. So I think that's the big question here. There's different ways of handling it, but I think all of it still stems back to we need to prepare as much as we'd like to think and live for today. Don't worry about tomorrow itself. We have to worry a little bit about tomorrow.
Yeah, we have to worry. But tomorrow's never promised, but we still got to worry about it. So before we get into this even more, I do want to pay the bills. So I want to mention the first of our two sponsors. We've got stuff to do here as well. So Mark Purvis has been with us. Those of you listening for any length of time know that Mark's been with us since the very beginning. He is our editor. He makes us sound good, takes out the ums, takes out the ahs, although it'd be interesting if he takes out the ums and the ahs, and then you're listening to this episode, it's going to say he takes out the and the. Anyway, he's got a website called legacyspotlight.com. So if you want to preserve those stories for future generations, contact Mark, legacyspotlight.com. He can help you preserve and share those stories of past generations with future generations. It's a fantastic service. He's an Emmy award-winning videographer. So again, contact Mark, legacyspotlight.com. So one of the things that I was thinking about as we were preparing for this week's episode is there's a couple different dynamics to this. So how do you prepare your family if you want to retire early? Part of my challenge with potentially retiring early, we had kids late. So if I retire early, I'm still going to have to put my kids through college. Now, hopefully my kids are good enough that they can get some scholarship money.
Right.
And I know my parents have been helping us in putting away money in a savings plan for them, a college savings plan for them. But what kind of a conversation, what do you have to do in order to help prepare your family to retire early?
So I think that's the hardest part. Assuming, okay, guys, you have to talk to the family. That's important.
I think number one, you need to talk about when do you want to retire, so that you're all on the same page.
That's the key. I think changing jobs or changing life itself, retirement is a huge change in our lives. So we have to have that conversation of like, what is that going to look like? What does that mean? Does retirement we know we stop working, right? But what does that mean? I think retirement doesn't mean that we're sitting around playing golf all day or drinking or watching television. It's, our next chapter. What are we doing? So having that conversation with your spouse to really understand exactly where what does that mean? What is it going to look like? And then, of course, how much is that going to cost? Because a lot of it, like, when I retire, I'm going to travel. Okay, well, there's a cost associated with that. Right. And unfortunately, we're not having income coming in. retirement can be also different too. Is like me as myself might retire, but my spouse may continue to work. That also may have an impact on how we're doing there too.
Yeah, we talked to Lauren about that last week from Adulting is Easy. If I remember right, her and her husband both have goals of when they want to retire, but it's not necessarily at the same time.
Right.
And I don't know that there's anything necessarily wrong with, one spouse is going to retire first and they're going to take over more of the at-home responsibilities while the other spouse continues to work for a little bit longer, continues to sock away savings, maybe based on the different ages of the different spouses. One may not be eligible to pull from a retirement account yet, and so they may want to work just to continue to pump money into the system for that reason.
Yeah, and I think what's the minimum age right now without actually any penalties? Is it that 58 for 401k, something like that? And then obviously Social Security doesn't kick in early. Social Security 62.
Right. I want to say retirement's closer to, at least for when you can pull from an IRA or a 401k,
Right.
I think that's closer to 59.
Yeah.
But I am not a financial advisor, so
you could tell.
I am not telling you that that's the absolute age. Check with your financial advisor to make sure you're clear on that date, on that age.
Nice disclosure.
Yeah, thank you.
I agree with you there. So I think that's the other thing too. It's like, hey, I want to retire when I'm 45. Fantastic. Those types of benefits are not available to you at that early age. So the question is, what do you need to retire? Again, if I'm making 40 grand a year, am I going to still need that and not have a job or something? That means you have to have some type of savings, nest egg, something in place to be able to supplement that income from not being there.
Either that or maybe a side hustle, maybe a
Correct.
second job, maybe a part-time job. I mean, there's no problem with retiring and then taking a second job that may not have those same hourly requirements that a full-time job might have. The classic example, I'm going to retire here and go work at Walmart, 3 days a week for, 8 hours a day and only make that little bit of money to supplement whatever else I have coming in. Or if you even want to get more complex, my investments are now paying
Right.
for when I retire, or my side hustle. Again, like Lauren was saying last week, her rental income from the short-term and the long-term housing is kind of supplementing her full-time job.
And that's what we're seeing nowadays itself, is that we're seeing the investments making money, the money making money. And I think that's where we want to all be. But once again, even if you heard last week's episode with Lauren, is buying that first investment property, doing what's necessary to make that income coming in. So for me, when you retire, it doesn't mean, you're not getting a paycheck per se, but your investments that maybe you've put in place for many, many years are actually supplementing the cash and income that's necessary to live.
Yeah, what occurred to me is kind of the mistake that people think, and I did for years. When I retire, I'm no longer going to work.
Right.
That's not necessarily true. You can retire and you can keep working. You just may shift from whatever your career was, whatever your profession was, to something else.
Yeah, and I think all of us get into that mode of, I'm going to stop working. But what does that mean? You stop moving? I mean, last time I checked, if you stop moving, you probably end up being dead there. So I don't think people end up wanting to do that. But I always look at it as, you're retiring from, okay, maybe your corporate gig, but now you're starting your own business.
Right.
Maybe you sell your business and now you're starting a second business or being time with more family. That's the thing we want to, it's not like retirement then is the end. Like, okay, we're done. Right. Usually it's the start of something new. And I think what we need to figure out as part of this process is, what money do I need to make that transition? And I'm going to start my business. I'm retiring from the corporate gig. Great. What does that mean? I need to have money to start my new business. That's the next chapter of my life. And I think a lot of people, we do that when we're in our 60s, right? Back in the day, it was 65, and all of a sudden now my new chapter is this. Now we're looking at our 25 and 35-year-olds, looking at them and saying, hey, I'm going to quit the 9 to 5, have my money make money, and now I'm actually going to go and do something else.
Yeah, and that was the old way we used to do it. I mean, the way my dad did it, the way I was raised when my dad did it, I'm going to work until I'm 65, I'm going to sell my business, and then I'm going to go and be lazy and not do anything. and certainly he's earned it. I'm not bashing him for that. But that whole thought process or concept of I'm going to sell my business and then I'm not going to do anything may not necessarily apply anymore. I'm gonna quit working and then I'm not gonna do anything. Even if you're going to pick up a hobby. My dad did woodworking for years. Now, he never sold any of his pieces, but theoretically, you could, if you were doing woodworking as a hobby, now you'd start selling that. There's your side hustle. There's your second income.
Totally makes sense, and I think that's what we're trying to tell folks. It's think a little differently in regards to what you're trying to do. When we say the goal of retirement, what does that mean? What's the next chapter? It's easier. I guess when I'm in my 60s, it'll be like, okay, what do I want to do next? I'm hoping that I have the nest egg, the investments, everything in place that I can go. And my big thing is, travel. I want to continue to travel, but I'm not going to wait till I'm 65 to do that. What I'm hoping for is I have things in place now that I can enjoy those type of travels now, to be able to then maybe even enjoy it a little bit more with family, my grandkids, all that kind of good stuff that comes as I get a little older.
Well, yeah, and to your point, the type of travel that you do may change. So when you're young, the type of travel you do is with your girlfriend or your significant other or your fiance, your spouse, whatever. Then you start to have kids, the type of travel changes. The type of travel changes maybe to a Disney World or a Universal or a Legoland because now we have kids. And then as those kids get older, the type of travel may change to, the Smithsonian and the different amusement parks, the different theme parks, the different monuments, Washington, D.C., all that kind of stuff. And then the kids grow up and get old and they go to college and you become empty nesters. Then the type of travel can shift again to now it's just me and my spouse again. What are the things we want to do? So just because you're not a worldwide traveler doesn't mean you can't still travel and have fun doing it.
Yeah. I can imagine some of the listeners like, hey, I'm working 3 jobs now. Like, what do you mean retirement?
Yeah.
So the thing you'll have to kind of understand here, guys, is then what is your number? Like, what is your retirement number? And I've had, sent some articles to Shawn. It's like, dude, now you need like $1 million. I think $1 million is like a starting point. Somebody obviously put a number out there and to say, you need $1 million because if I retire at 65, life expectancy is 73 at this point. And some of us are, if we're blessed to live into our 90s, that means, at least 30 years of income that you have to put in place. Right. So $1 million might be, that's great. But, if you get sick, if you all of those kind of things that put in place.
The flip side of that coin, if you say I'm going to retire at 65 and life expectancy is 73, you only got 8 years. Why not retire earlier than that? Retire if you can. If life expectancy is 78, why not retire at 58 and have 20 years of great
I like the
travel?
idea. I like the idea. But once again, it's like, what if I'm not financially in the position to be able to retire early?
So last year, 2 years ago, I can't remember, I went on this Russell Brunson kick. And for those of you that don't know who Russell Brunson is, think ClickFunnels, think sales funnels, think internet funnels, lead magnets, squeeze pages, that kind of thing. That's what Russell Brunson teaches. And one of the things that he coaches on through his books, through his social media, through whatever, start to go through and write down what are all the things that you enjoy doing? What are all the things that you're good at? Start writing those things down. What are some of the skills that you have that maybe other people don't have? Or maybe that you have skills that are better than what other people have, or you have skills that are different than what other people have. Start to write all that stuff down. And as you start to write all that stuff down, then you can look at, what could I turn into a side hustle? For me, it was creating content and that kind of stuff, and that resulted in 2 books. And it's going to result in courses and videos and all that kind of stuff. Like I said, for my dad, he got really good at woodworking. He could have turned that into a side hustle to make and sell pieces. So take a look at what are all the things that I do, regardless of what they are. I mean, you've heard me talk about on this show all the time, my big green egg and barbecuing. What if I developed that skill to a point that I could grill and smoke at a competition level? Could I turn that into a side business or a side hustle? So to your question of, well, wait a minute, I'm already working 2 jobs. I'm already working 3 jobs. How am I going to find the time to start something else? Why don't you start at what you're already good at, what you already have proficiency in? you already love doing it. It's not going to take you a lot to motivate you to do it. And then start to look at that to see how you can potentially turn that into something that makes you money.
Yeah, and I love the idea itself. I know some ideas I've had, like cupcakes. Those are the easy ones, right? Good food. But what makes it different in regards to the food itself? Like my wife, she's loves Spanish food, and it's one of those kind of things that if you give something like a Spanish kick or a Spanish flair, flan is always good for me. But
I love
horrible,
flan. I love flan.
Horrible for you, but it's so good.
So terrible,
Just,
but I love it.
But just little things like that, like it's amazing food. It stands out, and you can look to see again as a side hustles. Sell it, do those kind of things. So I agree. I think people, again, coaching. I love helping people in the corporate gig, training people itself, turned into a job itself to be able to help them specifically with money.
Yeah.
So I think you have to kind of look at what you do well and see how you can market it and see how you can use that to give back to the community and back to the world. I love that.
So one of the other things I was thinking of was, what if you're forced to retire early? What if you are forced to be downsized because you've hit a certain age, a forced retirement age? Yeah. What if you know that you're going to lose your job? What if you know that kind of thing is coming? So you're getting into forced retirement. What are some of the things that you can do in that scenario?
Well, some of the common scenarios itself, like, back, we've had, just different diagnoses that can happen. And you put yourself in a situation where it's like, well, I can't work anymore. So insurance, right?
Insurance.
Things like that you want to put in place. We think about like life insurance, disability insurance. Those things have to be in place early. And again, to our young listeners and our TikTokers, right? Those are the things that you have to do early because, one, they're cheap. They're cheaper when you're younger because as we get older, unfortunately, our bodies break down.
We're going to talk about that in next week's episode, aren't we?
But yeah, so do the things that are necessary in order to, put the insurance in place, the disability insurance, because as much as we think we're going to live forever, we're going to be healthy forever, life, does remind us.
Yeah, one of the things my dad told me really early, when I was 25, 26, 27, coming out of law school, he said, get as much life insurance as you can now when you're as healthy as you will ever be right now. And I look back and now, I'm turning 50 soon, got a diabetes diagnosis last year. Life insurance isn't going to be possible. I don't think I can get any more than what I have. Now, I've got plenty right now, but I don't think I can get any more than what I have right now. And if I do, it's going to be a lot more expensive than what I'm paying right now. So if you're young and if you're listening to this, I get it. We're all going to live forever. But I would look at getting a life insurance policy right now, whether it's a whole life policy where you can invest in it, whether it's a term life policy where it just pays out if you die, whether it's some combination of both. Definitely look at life insurance right now. Get it when you can, because if you do get some kind of diagnosis, even a diagnosis like me for diabetes that is controllable, that doesn't necessarily kill you right then, once you get that diagnosis, life insurance is going to be a lot harder, if not impossible, to come by. So get it now while you can.
And unfortunately, there's not a lot of safety nets in place that help those who are just not in the position itself to help themselves when it comes to insurance. I know SSI, there's a few governmental programs, but these programs itself are not meant to, as much as you may hear in the news, it's like, oh, these people are rich. Like, no, it's just enough to maybe scrape by when it comes to the payouts and the government help that puts out there.
Unemployment isn't designed to replace. It's just designed to be a stopgap. And unemployment doesn't last forever.
Correct.
Disability insurance, Social Security, early payouts of Social Security that are possible. Those types of things don't replace your salary. They're just meant to be Band-Aids to help.
The supplement, whatever is in place. So definitely it's important to plan for those situations, especially, again, when I started having a family. That really triggered for me was like, what if I'm not here? What if something happens to me, my wife, things of that nature? You want to have these kind of safety nets, these things in place. And insurance, no one likes paying it. No one likes paying the insurance itself. But I've heard a lot of stories where it's like, I'm glad it is. It was in place when those type of events.
Yeah, I've told this story a bunch of times on the show. I had a good friends of mine, husband and wife couple. I had met the wife when I first started working as an attorney in Miami and became good friends with her husband. We got Dolphins season tickets when I lived in Miami. He was a Miami guy, I was an FSU guy, so we had that battle. But otherwise, we were really good friends. He ended up passing away. Gosh, it's got to be, we're probably coming up on 15, 20 years ago now.
Wow.
He passed away in his 30s.
Ugh.
And he passed away leaving a wife, 3 young kids, 3 minors at the time. And the thing that I always smile about, I think his oldest is now at FSU. So I think about all those Miami FSU battles we had, and his oldest is now at FSU.
Oh, that's great.
But he didn't have. I think he had a $10,000 policy, and that's it. So he left behind a wife, 3 minor kids, a house with 2 mortgages on it, and a $10,000 policy. It was barely enough to bury him.
Right, to cover the.
And that was it. Now, luckily, I joke all the time. I'm worth more dead than alive. So if something happens to me, my wife is covered. But again, another point of, make sure you've got it when you can get it.
That's it. And I think being prepared, as much as we'd like to, live and don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow's tomorrow's problem. And it's guys, planning and preparation is a mature thing to do. I would say that. It's and we want to be more disciplined when it comes to our finances and how we manage our money. So these are the boring topics, I would say, but they're so important.
They are really important
as part of what we need to do and how we manage our finances in our lives.
Well, and I would say don't discount family help. I know it's hard.
Yep.
But don't discount family help. A lot of you have, and I know family situations, family dynamics are all different. But, don't discount that you may or may not have family that can help you. One of the other things I was thinking about is, we talk about having that rainy day savings. If you lose your job, that's what it's there for. Use it, and then with an eye towards rebuilding it later. But if you need it, now is the time to put that money away into savings so that when you need it, it's there. Now's the time to put it into investments that aren't going to be locked up until retirement, where if you need it, then it's there. And then the last thing I wrote down was kind of as a last resort, I think, is bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. In other words, if you do end up losing your job, if you do end up in a place where you are forced to retire, at that point, maybe you may have more debt than what you can afford to reasonably repay. And if you have no income and your assets are relatively low in value at that point, bankruptcy may be a good idea just to wipe the slate clean and then start over. If you get rid of all your debt in a bankruptcy and then 2 weeks later, a month later, 6 months later, whatever, get a 6-figure job, so be it. The trustee's not going to come after you after the fact and say, hey, you filed bankruptcy X months ago, you need to pay me back. So again, not the best solution for everybody, but potentially could be an option floating around out there.
So, I mean, when you're in that's the thing too, like we're in those vulnerable states, something like that happens. It is an emotional time because we're like, holy cow, this event happened, regardless if it's unemployment, change in life, whatever it might be. Obviously, grieve, or even with unemployment, there is a grieving period that you have to go through. But obviously, connect with the experts. I think there's a lot of information that's out there, different types of opinions. I would definitely recommend, I didn't even think about it. Like, you're right. If I'm in that situation, you're thinking like, oh, I just got to get a job and I'll just pay off all this debt and we just got to, kind of manage it.
How are you going to pay your mortgage while you're looking to get a job to pay off all the debt?
Exactly. So I think it's a great idea to have those conversations with obviously an expert like Shawn and really just understand exactly what your options are. And I think that's part of the planning as well. Like, you're in that situation, give me all the info. Let me know what it is that I have as options that you can make an informed decision. A lot of us, you could go, Uncle Charlie just told me, hey, just do this. Charlie maybe is a mechanic instead of a financial advisor. So, get yourself surrounded before making those kind of big calls in your life.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're pretty much towards the end of what we wanted to talk about. Anything else you think might be appropriate here?
I would say just the last thing, guys, know your number and plan and prepare. But I do want to say that this is our yours, not mine. I would say the 350th episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast.
This is going to end up being episode 350.
Nicely done. I would say any anything you want to say to the listeners.
It's going to sound repetitive, but I think just thank you. Thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for sticking with us through 350 50 episodes. I didn't think when I started this podcast I'd get to 3 episodes or 35 episodes. But yeah, 350. I have a great time doing it. I've told people all the time, yeah, the show does monetize. Yeah, the show does produce clients for me. Yeah, we've got our sponsors.
Right.
But we've got our patrons. Yeah, we've got all that stuff. But I think I'd probably be doing this show without all that stuff anyway.
But he appreciates it.
But I do appreciate it. But I'd probably still be doing the show regardless.
Got to have fun and enjoy that. And obviously your knowledge, your delivery, I have to say, it's one day I wish to speak as well as this fine lawyer that's out here, my friend. But we do appreciate you in all the shows that you have produced and the knowledge and the people you've helped. So thank you, my friend.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for joining the team. I don't recall what the episode number was, but...
Is it sad that it's 326?
Well, that's good. You're about a half year in. That's pretty good.
I like it, though.
So we do have to mention, speaking of sponsors, we do have to talk about Sam Cohen, one of our longest sponsors, I think maybe next to Mark. But Sam Cohen, those of you that have been listening knows, writes errors and omissions insurance for attorneys and title companies all over the country. So if you are an attorney, if you own a title company, if you know an attorney that owns their own firm or know someone that owns a title company, have them give Sam a buzz to compare apples to apples. What is their malpractice insurance cover? What does it cover? What does it not cover? What does it cost? All that kind of stuff. So Sam is at sam@attorneysfirst.com, or you can just go to his website, which is also attorneysfirst.com. Thank you, Sam, for sticking with us for as many episodes as you have and as you will. I know Sam has at least pledged to continue to support the show going into the future. So we definitely do appreciate that. We do want to give some love to the Curbelo Financial TikTok page, so go check out Curbelo Financial on TikTok.
Don't make fun of me, please.
Yeah, go ahead. Yesner Law has a YouTube page that I apologize. I will continue to fill with content here. I just got to get my routine back down in order, and YouTube will start filling up YouTube again with content.
Yes.
Our Patreon page. So again, we appreciate all the listeners. We appreciate the sponsors. If all you do is listen, we love that. Thank you for that. If you want to do a little bit more, if you want to kick us a couple of bucks here or there, that's what our Patreon page is for. So go to Patreon and search for Crushing Debt. You'll find us there. You can kick us a couple of bucks. But I think we are at the end.
I would say thank you. Hey, remind the listeners as well, like, hey, if there's any questions, we are looking to put together like a question, a Q&A kind of answering, and even with our, maybe with the Patreons, maybe do like one via Zoom.
Yeah.
There might be some ideas out there itself, but let's get some questions, from the audience, see what people are wanting to answer. We've got 2 people, at least one who's really smart, and the other is just sitting here. So we can answer some questions for you.
Yeah. If you definitely want, we do want. I have the voiceover guy say it at the end of every episode. If you have questions that you think would make a good topic, please let us know. We are also always looking for content that you would find valuable, and what more valuable content would we have than questions from you? Obviously, we're looking for that. So. I think that'll do it for this week. I've let George do it the last couple weeks, but I'm going to do it this week. If you want more money at the end of the month rather than more month at the end of the money, that's what this show is all about. Thank you again for listening, and we will catch you in next week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast.
If you have questions that you think would make a great topic for a future episode, please email Shawn or connect with us on social media. Shawn Yesner and Yesner Law, PL, are Florida licensed attorneys. The information contained in this week's episode is not a substitute for legal advice. Your situation may differ, especially if you are located somewhere other than the state of Florida. If you have questions, please contact our office or contact a local attorney. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast.